Hey, what's up, guys? This is Oakley, and this is going to be part two in our Geopolitics of Warhammer the Old World. If you haven't seen it already, check out part one where we cover the four main factions. This is going to be part two where we cover minor factions in the sense that those aren't the main races that CA has announced. So with me here today is going to be Arch Warhammer and Grey Hunter. So I'll let Arch start by introducing himself.
Hi, I'm Arch. I run a bit of a lore channel over at Arch Warhammer, so go check that out.
Hello again, lords and ladies of the YouTubes. It's me, Grey Hunter, and I run a channel called Gaming Shenanigans, which is kind of a bit of everything, but I also do lore.
Yeah, so I try and bring them on here so we can do the brief introduction, and I say brief because that last one
Hmm.
dragged us out to
Hmm.
about almost 30 minutes.
Oh, you loved it. You loved every minute
I
of it,
loved every
Oakley.
minute of it. But if you want to get even more in depth, definitely check those guys out. They do the huge in depth. Anyways, let's dive right into this. So a recap of what was in the last video. We'll go through this really quickly. We start with the greenskins. This is orcs and goblins. Mostly they squabble amongst themselves. No real sense of nationality or the big greenskin race. They fight amongst themselves until someone who's big enough, bad enough, can lead them, unite them, and they kind of lash out on a crusade type adventure and go crack some skulls. Next, you have the dwarves who had a big ancestral land all throughout the mountains that's been reduced to their holdings right now, and at the moment they're kind of isolationist and they hold a book of grudges, and so don't expect them to go invade countries. They're more defensive and yeah. Then moving on, we have the Empire. They're broken up into a bunch of different sort of sub municipalities or electorates, and they will squabble as well during times of no external threat. But once there's an external threat, then they'll unite and they'll fight against that. And then we have the vampire counts, which is kind of a detachment of them. They have a tenuous sort of holding within the empire. The border with the empire is kind of depopulated. The vampire counts at this point are sort of minding their own. They don't really all unite. Sometimes they might, but they're mostly opportunistic. And then I'll go ahead and cover Kislev, which we mentioned in the last video. So that's to the Empire's northeast border, sort of kind of like Russia, if you want to think about it. The land of sort of ice and snow, I think you guys had mentioned. So they're sort of friendly with the Empire in the sense that Kislev has been
They
beat
need to
up.
be.
Yeah, they need to be for survival's sake because to the north you have chaos and all those lands. So anything that comes through the north that gets through Kislev will be hitting the Empire soon enough. So the Empire has a vested interest in sort of supporting Kislev, so those relationships are pretty friendly. We talked about that in the last video. Then we'll start transitioning towards Bretonia. We talked a little bit about that in the previous video, but I'm going to hand this over to the guys a little bit more in depth then.
So, Bretonia, land of chivalry. These guys are amazing. And no, I'm totally not biased because I play them on the tabletop. No, never. They're basically King Arthur on steroids, combined with French ideas about chivalry and the language, due to names like Gilly le Breton and the Duchy of Musilion, other such things. They basically their shtick is that they are knights. Knights first and foremost, knights and the nobility oppressing the underclass or the peasants. So you don't want to be living in Bretonia. Politically, they generally get along with each other in the actual realm. They don't really have that many civil wars. They've had civil wars in the past, but like the Empire, they kind of generally band together when something external threatens them, or when the Lady of the Lake, who is their deity and totally not pulled from King Arthur at all, says, "Oi, stop it. Seriously, guys,
Mm-hmm.
what happened to unity?" They really, really like to fight. So they're kind of like the Greenskins in that if you give them an opportunity and say that it's for honor and death and glory, they'll go and fight for it. They fought in pretty much all places of the old world. They fought in the Border Princes. They fought in the Empire itself. They've rode north towards Kislev to fight Chaos. They fought in Astalia against the Arabians. Yes, I know. Games Workshop, political correctness, not a thing. But all in all, they're fairly stable, actually. If they appear in a Total War game, well, I say a Total War game, if they appear in Warhammer Total War, it will be generally as kind of a neutral faction of men. They're the most neutral that you can really get. Kislev has a vested interest in fighting Chaos and everything else. The Empire fights everyone because Bretonia will probably be the guys just sitting there on the sidelines, kind of messing with the elves every once in a while, but not really doing all that much. They're kind of they're not really going to have much of a place in a Warhammer Total War, I don't think.
Hmm. And we'd mentioned in the last video, their northern border with the Empire is kind of tenuous. They would perhaps like to fight and beat each other up, but neither of them can get too much of a toehold in each other's provinces. So it's kind of eh, a fight back and forth, squabble around there, but
Which
not
is
too
not to
much
say that they
progress.
haven't tried.
Right?
They've
Yeah,
tried and they failed.
they just grind each other to a pulp up along those borders every once in a while. Like I said in the last video, probably fueled by testosterone plus chivalry. Yeah, you get a lot of fights going on there. And I see they border a lot of the ocean. Are they a maritime power at all?
Not particularly. They don't real. They technically have a navy, but
Very
it's technically
technically.
in the sense that the king says they do. They don't really.
The Bretonian Navy is essentially a bunch of privateers, much like how France used to do during the Napoleonic Wars, etc. So they're technically privately owned vessels, but when the king tells them that they're Bretonian Navy now, then they are essentially Bretonia's Navy.
Okay. And then to the, I guess the south, you guys mentioned Estalia and Tileas. We'll talk about that later, but mostly I think the big guy on the southeast is going to be the Wood Elves. So that is mostly where Bretonia meets the forest. You're going to have a little bit of friction there.
Hmm.
So we'll
Just
pass
a bit.
this on to Arch, I guess, who will talk about the Wood Elves and their status.
The Forest of Athelloren, yes. The realm of the Wood Elves, a magical little realm full of elves,
Hmm.
because, well, duh. And yeah, they have a essentially kind of perhaps maybe alliance-ish thing going with the Bretonians. Even the alliance is a bit harsh. Non-aggression
It's more
pact
out of
with
necessity.
benefits. Yeah. The Wood Elves have helped the Bretonians on times, and the Bretonians have helped the Wood Elves on time, but it's not a deep, warm friendship. If the Bretonian should somehow manage to wander his way into the Forest of Athelloren,
Huh.
he's not going to get out again, so to say.
No, most
But
definitely
the
not.
forest itself, it doesn't have a diplomatic relationship with anybody, essentially, simply because they don't accept diplomats. They shoot them, and then they laugh at them as they string them from trees.
Or the trees eat
And,
them.
yes, or the tree eats them, that is also a
Hmm.
possibility. And they have no interest in expanding, for the moment, at least. The reason as to why is far too lengthy for me to even try and touch on here, so just head over to my video if you want to hear me ramble on 20 minutes about their internal politics and why they're not expanding. But yeah, they're not going to be invading anybody. Not how it stands right now, anyways.
So they're a little bit like the dwarves in that they're kind of these older factions that have been around for a while, and they're just trying to hold on to their ancestral lands.
Ancestral lands is putting it strongly, but yes, essentially. And we leave it
Okay.
at that for now.
Well, the forests, yeah, I guess yeah.
Calmly, Arch, calmly.
So we'll get
He is but a novitiate into the Warhammer world. Calmly.
yeah. So I'm here to ask the dumb questions. Anyways, check out these guys for the more reasonable approach to this. So let's keep moving south then. So we've covered the dwarves. Let's hop over to the border princes. So this is kind of a territory where, as it says here, it's the border princes. They're a border between a lot of different factions. And from what I understand from you guys, it's a bunch of not the independent robber barons you guys were saying was sort of the analogy. So a bunch of different small cities and territories and perhaps little princes or kings, whatever they want to call themselves. So no real sense of national unity for them.
Not really, no. They kind of,
Essentially none.
yeah. They're a little bit of everybody, basically. Like when it comes to the realms of men, there's Bretonian knights who have thrown away their honor, exiled nobles from the empire, mercenaries who went and fought against the Greenskins and decided, you know what, this actually isn't that bad of a spot, and people will pay me to stay here.
Yeah. So this the Dogs of War land?
No,
Ah.
well, kind of. Not really though. Talea is more the Dogs of War. The Border Princes, they're the robber barons of France, as we discussed between ourselves. They're not really aligned with anybody. They'll fight simply to hold on to what's theirs. The Border Princes is basically a realm of you came here to become something that you couldn't have achieved in your homeland,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. Usually like second sons. Think kind of like the Crusader states where the second son who wasn't going to inherit anything got shipped off to the Holy Land. It's a little bit like
See
that.
what you can make of yourself type of place.
Essentially, you have no place at home. Go forth and make what you can of yourself.
And I guess as a border region, especially because they're splitting the two dwarf um, sort of territories, you can see a little bit of the dwarven holds to the south. They do control some trade traveling through there, so trade is pretty important, I'd imagine.
They don't really have that much law
Ah,
when it comes to anything really. They generally just get mentioned as side notes in other army books.
I
But
see.
yes, essentially the dwarves do travel through the border princes. They do have trade relations with them every once in a while. But it's more of a you're here, we decide not to go and take back what's ours.
Hmm. Okay. Well, then let's move on to Talea and Estalia. I think, Grey Hunter, you said you wanted to cover those as well,
I do. I love these guys. They're great. So Telea and Estalia, it's Spain and Italy. That was real subtle
respectively.
of you.
Estalia is Spain, Talea is Italy.
Yes. Telea is most definitely Italy. Telea is basically the Italian city-states period in a nutshell. There's a ton of republics, principalities, everything that you can imagine. There's there's even a pirate principality
Hmm.
in this place. There's a ton of stuff. They came from the Blighted Marshes, which is that little blotch that says Skaven on it, which I'm sure Arch will love
He's
to talk about.
he's just waiting
He's
on the
chomping.
sidelines.
He's like, gimme, 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 gimme. So the Talaeans came from that general area, and they eventually spread out across the whole peninsula and that little island down there, Sartosa. And they are the home of the mercenary, mainly because, well, they're the analog to the Italian city-states. Of course, they have mercenaries.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of internal squabbling there too. You're seeing kind of a theme here with the realms of men. But mostly it's games within games. It's kind of like the Game of Thrones, if you will. And the cities the cities fight each other, but they fight each other through proxies. So they'll hire a mercenary army, it'll go fight somebody else's mercenary army. One of them will win, but if they can't take the other side's city, then they'll just kind of pretend nothing ever happened. So very, very much like the Italian city-states. There's a few that are obvious shout-outs. There's, and I hope I get this right, Miragliano, which is home to Leonardo da Vinci, although he's Leonardo di Miragliano, and he created quite a few little interesting things. He created a thing called the steam tank, among others. And the Talaeans are kind of they're interspersed with every other faction of men. So it's kind of hard to talk about them just by themselves because they have dealings with the Empire, they have dealings with Bretonia. If they appear in a Total War game, they will be the mercenary faction, where you get all your troops to boost up your armies.
Okay, and they might be trade heavy as well.
They'll be very, very trade heavy.
Do they
If
have an
there is a trade
equivalent to the
system,
Venetians?
well, there is a place that is basically Venice.
I
There's a
see.
place that's Milan, obviously. There's also a place that is Rome.
Hmm.
It's Italy. I think we can just probably leave it at that.
Okay.
Telea is Italy. Estalia, on the other hand, is most definitely Spain, but there's not very much in the lore about them at all because, well, Games Workshop never really thought that they'd actually use them. They've basically just been there to be a place that Bretonia went and fought that one time, a place to go send colonists over to the New World, which is probably something that we'll discuss in another video eventually.
Hmm.
Um, there's there's really nothing about Estalia to discuss apart from saying that it's Spain, and they also came from the same place as Telea did. They just went the other way.
Okay, and then we'll kind of all collectively wave to Albion. Hi, Albion. Not much going.
Druids, Celts,
Not
giants.
much going on there. We've talked about this before the video. There's not much fleshed out in the lore. They're just supposed to be, yeah, like you said, the druids and all that stuff. It's supposed to be kind of like England, but they're not really detailed at all. So,
It's England where the Romans never invaded,
right.
essentially.
Okay. So, like I said, we'll wave them by now. All right, bye, Albion. And with that, I guess we'll transition to Arch, who's been patiently sitting there. Arch, and he's here to talk about Skaven. So, all right, take it away.
Okay, so to get the Skaven done in something that isn't going to get us all old and grey, I'll stick to the basics. Their origin has been much discussed to the point that we don't really know how they came to be. There are theories they are beastmen, there are theories they were created from some mystical entity, there are all kinds of theory as to how the Skaven came about, but they are essentially a race of rat people. Very, very devious, extremely treacherous. No two Skavens will ever trust each other further than they, well, not even can throw each other. There's a wonderful little Skaven motto, so to say, that if you can't backstab the other guy first, then you shouldn't even be in the same room as him. They have an internal system that is ruled by the Council of 13, which is 13 of the most vicious, evil, treacherous, bastardly Skaven in existence, including their deity.
Ouch. Okay.
What?
No, it's okay.
Yes, yes.
I was going to say it's actually 12, but you covered it.
Yes, you say that the Horned Rat is not a Skaven, and I call you a heretic infidel.
I'm sorry!
Which includes their deity, the Horned Rat, which is, by natural accord, the biggest, baddest of all the Skaven. To the point where his seat on the council, well, in most cases, I would agree that there are 12 Skavens, except for the fact that this deity actually attends council meetings, which makes the other 12 remarkably nervous at times, especially one of them who usually pretends to speak for the Horned Rat, who relatively recently got obliterated in a puff of magic because, well, he said the wrong things. The Skaven give not two shits about the lives of other Skavens. If they have any kind of benefit in killing another Skaven, they will not hesitate. If they have any kind of benefit in killing or backstabbing anyone else, human, elf, dwarf, whatever, they will gladly do it. And as such, they don't have much of a diplomacy unless the dudes they are dealing with are remarkably stupid, because they have quite the reputation for being, well,
Or desperate.
treacherous. Yes. Although I still think
brings to
stupidity
mind.
is going to have to be pretty deep in there.
So I guess
However,
you
they
want to
have saved
note
the world
also
twice.
you want to also note the fact that they're not just that little territory right there. Or I guess you'll get to that in a little bit.
Mm.
It's probably better that you remind me, I think, yes. Yes, the Skaven Under Empire, they have tunnels covering the vast majority of the world, the Old World, the New World, everywhere. They have burrows under pretty much every single major city, to the point where they have taken the names of the major cities and just called their layers underneath them Under whatever. So Under Altdorf, Under Newlyn. The only places they haven't gotten inside is Ulthuan, because of magical barriers that cause, well, lore reasons and all kinds of things. And Forest of Athaloran, because, again, magic.
Hand
But,
waving.
yes. But otherwise, they are everywhere. They are, I would probably say, the most numerous of all of the factions in the Warhammer universe, only somewhat rivaled by the Orcs.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. I'm not sure if he's going to call me a heretic again, because he might. But the Skaven, for all their backstabbing, have actually saved the world before. They, for all that they hate everybody else, if preservation of themselves is right up there with reasons to do something, they'll do it.
Saved the world twice, in fact.
Yes. Yes, they did. Those thieving, scheming little rat men.
So in terms of their goals, kind of like how we've identified other factions as being expansionists, isolationists, Skaven, they want to get everywhere, presumably.
They're the
They
most
are an extremely
opportunistic.
expansionist race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially, if they can kill and eat it, they will kill and eat it, including other Skavens, which is the primary reason why they haven't tried to kill and eat everything else, because they're too busy killing and eating each other for the moment.
I see.
Essentially. I would say, as well, for people who are actually interested in knowing where the Skaven are, apart from that little blotch that is the Blighted Marshes, there's a really, 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 really good map that Oakley used as the basis for this one, which is humongous. Like it's a Google Maps thing, basically, and you can zoom in and you can see every little city on the world. So I'd say probably link that in the video description, Oakley.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'll link
Yeah,
that in the description, and you can go ahead there and zoom in, and then you'll be able to see
because
all
it's
the little
amazing.
markings that show you, Oh, look, a Skaven den. A Skaven den, a Skaven den, a Skaven den. Just
Oh,
everywhere.
look, a human city, Skaven Den.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So actually, that was pretty tame in terms of a quick coverage of Skaven. Was there anything else you wanted to mention?
Oh, don't get him
Yeah,
started.
actually, maybe the wrong question.
Oakley, what have you done?
Yeah, I've trying to keep it concise, so their origin story not too much to say. Their internal politics is extremely convoluted and aggressive. Essentially, they've been at war with everybody at some point. They are continuously at war with everybody, and they will use any means at their disposal, be that chemical warfare, biological warfare, plagues, terror tactics, whatever. They are completely unscrupulous, and they will do whatever it could potentially take to take over the world, which they
I just
have
want to
tried multiple
mention.
times.
I just want to mention. It's got nothing to do with geopolitics, except that they fight the lizard men every once in a while. But the Skaven brought down a moon. Why did they bring down this moon? Because they're fucking crack addicts. The moon is made out of warpstone, and they love it.
So another motivating factor then.
Oh yes, if they can get their hands on some of that delicious, delicious crack, they will
Acquire warpstone.
Okay.
make a
So
profit.
So I guess at this point, I hope we've been able to show everyone that this is not a world of black and white. All the different factions have their nuances, a lot of potential, yeah, world and stuff to be fleshed out. We'll see how CA can handle it. And I guess that maybe the last people that we haven't quite mentioned, we've touched on them, would be Chaos and the people to the far north. Maybe that's the last geopolitical entity we can talk about.
Hmm.
And they're kind of the biggest of the external threats that might be the only one who could unite these disparate factions together against them. So maybe we'll close on talking just real briefly on the threat of chaos then.
The threat of
Well,
chaos is twofold, I would say. First of all, of course, it's the threat of large, spiky dudes coming down from the north and hitting you over the head with a hammer. And it's also the threat of corruption, the fact that they can turn essentially anyone to the cause of chaos through magical doodahs and means of
as we saw in the
wonderfulness.
trailer,
Indeed.
Mhm. Lords of Change all up in this.
Okay. So Granter, you had anything else um, about chaos?
Yes, actually, chaos. So their their diplomatic mail, their relations with everybody else. Their diplomatic mail is usually preceded with yells for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, souls for the soul eater. So they're not going to be friends with anybody.
Right.
They're probably going to be. I see. As a player of Total War, I would like them to be a playable faction because they're interesting. But what I think that is probably going to happen is they're going to be like a horde mechanic. So you're not actually going to be able to go up into the Chaos Wastes. But every once in a while, a Chaos Warlord's going to be like, hey, you see those guys down there in the south? What pansies? And just attack. That's what I reckon is probably going to happen with them.
Right. You don't come to chaos, chaos comes to you. Okay.
Exactly.
There's no
Exactly.
point
They
in
call you.
invading the north. Like,
Yeah,
there's a
there's
wonderful
nothing there.
part in the Liber Chaotica which describes this beautifully.
Yeah.
Oh, God. He's brought out the law books, everybody.
Indeed. There is a race named the Hung, and no, not that way. Filthy minds. They're
You
essentially a
started
bunch
it.
of Mongolian bastards that roll down from the north and kill all kinds of people, whatever gets in their way. And there's a beautiful little saying, the saying that, okay, there's an argument going, why don't we attack the Hungs? Why don't we take the war to them before they can take the war to us? Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to burn the grasslands? Pillage the streams? You can't. There, the Chaos North is empty. There's no settlements there. There is no mineral wealth to be plundered. There are no cities to be burned. There are no people to butcher. There are just war bands of crazy ass warriors that if they don't want to fight you, they'll just leave.
Mm-hmm.
I would point out as well that nice, interesting little wrinkle with the Chaos Wastelands and therefore Chaos itself is that the Chaos Wastelands are home to these things called warp gates, which are basically portals to the ethereal world. Demons come out of them periodically to eat the world. Why? Because those goddamn lizard men and those goddamn old ones ruined everything. So yeah, not only do you have to deal with ravening hordes of Mongols and Huns on steroids, but you have to deal with ravening hordes of demons backing them up.
Mhm.
They're not going to be fun.
So cool. So I think,
Not even.
before you guys make any more points, I think we'll we'll call it there for this video. So we've hopefully covered major, minor factions. So check out both of those two videos. If you guys have any further questions, definitely go ahead and post them in the comments below. We'll try and address those. Otherwise, check out both of these guys' channel, Arch Warhammer and Grey Hunter. And that's where these guys kind of they don't hold anything back.
We tried to be good. We tried.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll leave it there. If you guys have any recommendations as well for what other things you'd like us to cover, sort of in an overview fashion like this, we're all ears. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. See you guys.